Bye-bye, Reef. See you in your new house.
Hey everybody, Reef Girl here, and welcome to my channel. This video is about moving my reef, the entire process. It's going to be a long video, but it kind of needs to be because it was a pretty complex undertaking. What made me get serious about it? Well, it's what I'm showing you right here. That pagoda coral on the left is being attacked by the Leptocerus on the right. The Leptocerus has huge tentacles. I had no idea, but something had to be done, so I started planning in earnest to move the reef. I had a 90-gallon holding tank ready to go, so I peeled off the pagoda coral and put it in here along with a bunch of frags and everything that was loose on the sand. I distributed the corals throughout this tank in areas that I thought they would do well in terms of light and flow. I had to do a lot of testing though, because I wasn't sure where the parameters were exactly, and I wanted to do my best to match them up with what was going on in the Red Sea tank. These photos show several of the corals about 2 days after I put them in this tank. They adapted really quickly and really well. A little over a week later, I moved more corals from the sand bed over to this tank. Seeing how well they did was really encouraging. I hadn't yet done any testing, but I was fairly confident the parameters would be pretty good, given how everything in here looked. So that was a positive thing right off the bat to give me some confidence that this whole reef move might actually work. I started adding equipment to help maintain the water quality. First up was the skimmer, which I found in a box in the basement. It was completely intact. When I put it together and hooked it up, it ran beautifully. Next up was dosing. I had this camera I hoped to use. However, there are no manual controls on this thing. It's all done via Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi wasn't very reliable here, so I ended up swapping this out for a Jabo DP4. It has buttons I can push, and it was exactly what I needed. By this point, the rocks have been in here for a couple of months. You can see that algae is starting to grow. That's why I have the mollies. They did a great job keeping it in check. I discovered the alkalinity was very low in this tank, about 5.2, so I set the Jabo up to do some dosing to try and increase it to match the Red Sea tank, which I like to keep at 8.5. I went old school using Seachem's Reef Carbonate. This is one of the first chemicals I ever used in a reef tank, and it did really well. So I thought it was the simplest way to get things going in this temporary setup. Well, now we're at the end of the first week in June, and we're coming up to a deadline. We need to get our house on the market, and before we can do that, this complete room has to be emptied, which means this entire reef and tank have to be gone. We have to replace flooring, clean and fix walls. Oh boy, the salt spray is unbelievable. And fix holes in the window frames where we've drilled right through to the outside for skimmer and micro bubble scrubbing air lines. Yeah, there's a lot of work to do here. The deadline is looming. I have to get moving on this thing. I started by moving stuff around to give me access to the areas that needed to come out. That included Elvis's barnacle with him in it. I had to do some trimming because I identified a whole lot of areas of coral that were vulnerable to being broken off in transit. I figured I might as well cut them and frag them rather than end up with smithereens at the other end. Then I took out the war coral. Here's the first major piece I took out. It's the one with the Duncan on it. That was set into a hollow. I really didn't know what would happen. But check this out. It came out intact, one huge piece. These first few steps went really well, but here's where it gets complicated. Next, I need to pull enough water from the sump to put into the Rubbermaid tote I have ready in the car to cover the rocks that I'm going to take today. It'll be kind of like a water change because I do have new salt water made up and ready to be pumped back into the sump to replace what I take out. I'll use a maxi jet to take the water out of here, pump it into this roughly 2-gallon container and then take them out one at a time and dump them into the tote that's waiting in the car. And 20 minutes later, everything is jammed into here. This torch broke off, so I've kind of got it propped up in the corner there with towels. And I got as much as I could in here. So we will see what happens as we drive. I've shaken the tote back and forth a little bit just to see how stable everything is. And although it rocks a little bit, I don't think it really can go anywhere. So I guess we'll find out at the other end. Okay, so I moved everything over here. I'm sure most of it is too close together, but I had to make space to put the rocks on the left-hand side that I brought over. And here they are. They are very precariously balanced. I don't have the arch to hold things up at the front, so they're just sitting here. The Duncan did come off, so I've placed it there for now until I see how I can set things up. Oh yeah, it's a week later and I have moved nothing further out of this tank. In fact, I have moved stuff into this tank because I moved Mollywood over to the other house. So there were a lot of frag racks in Mollywood and those are here now. Before I moved Mollywood, I fragged my Corky Seafinger and my RG Weepy Toadstool. And of course all of those frags are here too, until I can get them to the LFS. Today, I'm going to be moving the left-hand arch that I had to leave behind last time. And I should tell you, last time I had a bit of a surprise when I removed the rocks. The return pump almost ran dry, and that was because I didn't think about displacement. Fortunately, I had extra salt water on hand so that I could top up the return chamber. So this time I filled the tote in the car, and after I topped up the sump, I added additional water into the return chamber so that when I pull those big rocks out, hopefully the return pump will stay submerged. You can see here I was able to detach this arch pretty easily from the main rock structure, and now I'm going to rotate it so the torch is upside down to reduce stress on the polyps. Pretty empty over here now, and it really surprised me that there wasn't a huge cloud of debris that came up into the water when I pulled that arch. So now I'll put the arch in the water in the car and get going. Well, everything's in here, but it looks nothing like it did in the other tank. It's completely rearranged. This tank is 4 inches smaller from front to back, so the space is much tighter. Things are oriented differently, and because this corner is so tight, I was not able to get both my arms in here. So I ended up doing all of this with just one hand. This meant I had to move really fast and drag things along the sand and rotate things and put things on other things and hope it all didn't fall in a big heap. So everything here is very precariously balanced. I'm going to have to be super careful not to accidentally knock anything down as I work with the rest of the pieces I have to bring. Well, will you look at that? I do still have a goby. I got some food ready. He's used to this routine. There he goes, he's striking at it. And here we are the next day, getting prepared to do more moving. First thing, I have to get this huge Montipora colony off the rocks because I don't have room for it in the other tank. I'm going to take it to the LFS. Today I'm going to be moving one of the central structures, and that means I have to do a lot of trimming of Acropora because they're sticking out beyond the rocks and I don't want them to break off in transit. After the trimming was done, it was time to move the pillar itself. I remember putting this in here. It took 2 hands. It was so heavy. I did finally get it moved forward, and once again I was very surprised at how little dirt and detritus was kicked up from the sand. And here we are, ready for the move. Unfortunately, I ended up smashing some of these Acropora into the glass. Yeah, duh. So I'm hoping that I won't lose them. I think it's not too bad, so hoping they'll recover.
Yeah, that's not a good look.
Once again, time to get some water into the tote in the car, get this thing into the tote, and drive.
Oh boy, that looks different. Yeah, check out the water all over the floor. But that went very well. And it's lying down. This end is very, very heavy. I'm hoping that means it won't slide. If this thing shifts suddenly to the left, we could get some crunching and munching. I don't know. We'll find out when we get to the other end. So we have half and we survived. Looks good. Over here we had a collapse because I struck it with my hand when I was getting this in place. The Duncan has been bashed around quite a bit. The Devil's Eye Chalice, this arch basically collapsed on it. So we got that all fixed.
Ready for another moving day? Today, I'm going to try to make 2 trips. And as with the other half of the reef, I need to take a few things apart and remove some coral before we can start to move.
So first up is going to be this. It's loose already, and then I'm going to cut back the knotty spiral, trim back the season's greetings. Got my handy saw. The fish are all hiding because I have the lid off. There we go. See, this is just barely hanging on to that spot. This gorgeous, gorgeous piece. I mean, check out the swirling on it. It is just beautiful. All right, so here we go. Oh, there's a piece. Just dropped to the bottom. That's okay. I'll pick it up later. Another piece. Yeah, it's kind of crumbly. Start at the back. Whoa. Yep, keep losing them. We've got all this down here. So the next step is going to be to grasp the right-hand pillar, break it off from the adjacent rock structure, and move it forward. Yeah, that's going to be fun.
I was a little worried about this one tipping over because the L shape that wrapped around the overflow was kind of shallow. There wasn't much supporting it, and originally it was right on the bottom. Now I was going to be putting it on top of the sand.
Okay, so here is the right-hand pillar pulled forward. And check out the slime. Red Montipora came right off.
Poor Elvis, he doesn't know what's going on.
Fish are checking it all out. Where's my house? I had a house. And over on the left there is their new house. Wow, it looks like a mess. Holy messy reef, Batman. So these rocks on the left, we added here from the other rock tote they were cooking over there to give the fish something to live in when we dismantle their territory.
So I did try, but I was unable to pick this up by myself. So I got my husband to do it. Those are his manly arms you see in there, lifting out that second pillar. I had to hold the lights aside so that we could get it safely over the rim of the tank. Look at that thing, it's huge. Okay, so it turns out it's pretty tall. Time for plan B. I had to move this a little bit and then go back and get more water.
We need more water, so we're adding more water here. Then going to circulate it for 5 minutes or so and then take more out. Oh yeah, so as always, I'm always nervous, and as always, it goes better than I thought. Now we will see what happens at the other end. Okay, so we got the right-hand pillar in. The water's cloudy because of all the sand I had to move from underneath it so I could seat it properly on the bottom. But it looks pretty good, and we have not had any tissue loss on these. This is what went in 2 days ago. The white areas are where I trimmed it. And here is the stuff we brought today. There's gonna be lots of slime.
So now we'll drive the 45 or 50 minutes back home and get another piece.
All that's left is the right side. I'm going to be working on this from the side, trying to break it apart. I have no idea where it's gonna break, how many pieces it's gonna break into, but it was modular when I put it together. It was made up of a front arch, a middle bridge rock, and a back pile of rocks for a cave. So I don't know whether it will come apart like that. So first I'm going to try lift it up in the center here. This is the bridge rock. Okay. What do you need to do that? Yes. There we go. And there's the arch. Oh, Gobi. He's been homeless so many times through this process. I honestly do feel bad. If he doesn't die of stress, it'll be a miracle. I'm going to take this, and then I can take the arch and just set it in place. That's the smarter thing to do. I think that's the mistake I made with the other one. It's going to be extremely heavy. Okay, so the pillar came earlier today, and we just brought this piece of the right-hand side, and it's going to be very tight as to whether the arch is going to fit. I have my doubts. Could be right up against the glass. I'm going to run out of space. I know it. It's official. It's empty. The reef has been removed. Yeah, a little bit emotional about it, but you know, it's one of those things that has to happen. Well, finally, everything is moved over. You can see it is stuffed. A few things are not glued down yet. Just kind of waiting to see how everything does in the places that I've put it. Didn't get any RTN on any of the aquapora. Check it out, the goniopora is coming out. The green candy cane broke off, so that has to be glued down yet. Some of the places are not ideal, and we are going to be bringing other lights, so pretty amazing.
So this is how things looked immediately after everything was moved in. If you follow along, you'll know by some of the other videos I've done that things have changed in here since then. I've moved a few of the solitary corals on the sand over to Mollywood because they were getting flipped over and just really irritated by the green wrasse. So there are several corals that aren't in here anymore for their own protection. It was quite a process. Now I'll do the video about moving the fish. Even though I'm a little sad to say that I no longer have most of those fish because of a mass death incident I had on August the 8th. However, I think it's really worth doing the video because if it's helpful at all to see how the fish were moved, because really they lived in here absolutely fine for 2 months, for more than 2 months. So they were not affected in the least by the move. They were affected by a stupid mistake I made. So thanks for watching. If you stuck around to the end, as always, I really do appreciate it. This was an extra long video, but it had to be because it was a complicated, difficult process that went a lot better than I had any right to expect it to.